Hi, my name is Jeff Jordan, president and founder of Rescue Agency, the behavior change agency. And for the past 21 years, we've been working on over a dozen public health topics, such as nutrition, substance use, and sexual health. But today I'm going to talk to you about the topic that we were founded on, which was youth tobacco control. Today, that obviously means youth vaping. But youth vaping has been converging with another health crisis, which is youth mental health. So we're going to talk about how to develop campaigns that take into account both of these challenges that today's youth are facing to motivate teens to truly live nicotine-free. Today, we know that more than 1 in 5 American youth say that they are facing some sort of mental health challenge. And 1 in 10 teens are also saying that they vaped in the past 30 days, with some localities seeing numbers much higher than this. So what has changed, and why is it that these two topics are actually converging? Well, based on our research that we've been doing with youth for the past 20 years, we've seen all sorts of evolution in the types of products that teens use and why they take up these products. One of the biggest changes that we saw was that before COVID, we were still hearing curiosity and social activity and even relaxation being some of the biggest drivers of why teens were starting to vape. They were new products, there were all sorts of flavors, there were all sorts of things that really piqued that curiosity. But ever since COVID, we started to see the reasons that teens said that they were vaping really start to change and evolve. Today, we're hearing still that teens are trying to relax and get calm, but we're also hearing teens say that they vape because they're trying to deal with stress and anxiety. And that's actually coming up more often today than their kind of social activity and their peers, which used to be something that we would hear all the time. So what does that mean? Is that vaping has evolved from being a social activity and kind of a safe way to rebel and to define your identity, and is now being sought after as a way to cope, to escape, and to deal with stressors in their lives. So we're moving really from kind of vaping as rebellion to vaping as coping. And this requires that we look at this issue completely differently. Now, it's not just about saying why vaping is bad for you, but it's actually helping teens understand how it is that vaping is interacting with the mental health that's actually pushing them to vape in the first place. Nicotine is at the core of this intersection. Teens are feeling that somehow the nicotine in vapes is actually helping them with their mental health. But us in public health know that that's not true. Before we jump into campaigns and messaging, let's talk a little bit about how nicotine affects mental health so that we all know the actual science that goes into this messaging. What we know is that nicotine affects important neurotransmitters in the brain, which can cause unnatural shifts in a way that changes the brain structure over time. Neurotransmitters are the chemical messengers in the brain that send signals to the body that regulate multiple functions and processes. The brain has receptors that neurotransmitters bind to, such as dopamine, serotonin, and acetylcholine. When the brain gets nicotine, it binds to these receptors, which can augment or change the levels of neurotransmitters in the brain. Over time, this changes the pathways in the brain that contribute to how someone processes emotions, such as stress, anxiety, and depression, and leads to nicotine dependency. The neurotransmitter dopamine is connected to the reward system and plays a role in feelings like pleasure, contributing to making someone's brain crave more and more nicotine. Nicotine can cause low levels of dopamine, which is associated with feelings such as low motivation and more. The neurotransmitter serotonin helps to stabilize someone's mood and plays a role in feelings like happiness. Nicotine can cause low levels of serotonin, which is associated with changes in overall mood, such as being irritable and more. Nicotine impacts the neurotransmitters like dopamine and serotonin in a way that affects how someone feels and acts in the short term, such as feelings of being easily agitated, off, anxious, tense, difficulty focusing, and more. Over time, these feelings can become worse. The neurotransmitter acetylcholine plays an important role in the brain and the central nervous system, connected with how we process emotions. It has been connected to maintaining calm, so when the body gets nicotine, which can bind to the brain's receptors instead of acetylcholine, it disrupts what the body is meant to feel, which can result in the opposite feelings, like fear and anxiety, which can over time become the body's more natural responses due to nicotine. It has been shown that changing levels of acetylcholine have been associated with longer-term increase in risk for anxiety and depression. So, what does that mean? Well, what it means is that even though nicotine gives teens a short-term relief of whatever they might be feeling, overall, it makes them feel more overwhelmed and restless, stuck in a cycle, feelings of closing in and tunnel vision, sometimes feeling out of it, in your head, sweating the small stuff, dragged down, lost, numb, tired, withdrawn, annoyed. All these feelings that we've heard teens describe how they feel once they're starting to feel that addiction to nicotine come on. Why? Because it's that over time impact of nicotine on the neurotransmitters causing changes that start to change how teens, kind of how their baseline emotions feel. With nicotine use, these feelings can become worse and worse over time. So what's the problem? Teens think that vaping can help them cope with mental health, but in reality, it only makes them worse. And a lot of them don't realize that those worse feelings are actually coming from the nicotine that they've been turning to for the relief. So for us in public health, trying to tackle teen vaping, the question becomes, how do we reframe vaping as harmful to their mental health and replace vaping with meaningful resources and social support so that teens have something they can turn to deal with these mental health challenges that have been leading them to vaping in the first place? What we need to be able to do this is we have to show teens, first of all, clear facts. That's why it's important to go through the science, because we got to know what we're talking about before we are delivering information to teens. We got to make sure that we're providing authentic narratives that show them exactly what it is that teens like them are experiencing and why. Really show empathy to what they're feeling. Provide social support for their changes. Provide them places where they can get this social support and guided solutions that don't just tell them they should stop doing something, but help them understand what that might look like for someone like them in their situation to stop doing something. So we need to know, how do we reframe vaping as harmful to teens' mental health? And help them understand that the thing that they're turning to for help is actually making their situation worse, while also replacing vaping with meaningful resources and social support. Now, while campaigns are perfectly suited to do something like this, unfortunately, a lot of campaigns that have tried to tackle nicotine and addiction with teens haven't really provided that kind of empathy and clear science that empowers teens to make decisions for their own. Instead, they tend to try and scare teens and don't really help them understand what's going on in their brain and why they're feeling the things that they're feeling. For example, here's just one of many examples that come to mind of campaigns that have focused on fear tactics instead of that science and support that teens need.
Help. I'm gonna die. I'm gonna die. I'm gonna die.
Relax. You can make it.
No, I won't make it. I can't make it. I see a long, white tunnel with smoke coming out of it, and the smoke smells like mango and mint, and I'm going to die. Get me to a charger!
Just shut up! This is driving me crazy.
Driving you crazy? You're not the ones gonna die.
So what we saw in that ad and have seen in many others is that instead of empowering teens with knowledge, better understanding of themselves, with empathy of the challenges that they're going through, it just creates shame. It doesn't deliver facts. It delivers lack of clarity, fear tactics, and it kind of makes teens feel even lonelier in the issue that they're dealing with. And it may highlight the problem and kind of reinforce that there is an issue here, which some teens actually already recognize as an issue, but it provides no real solution. It just kind of tells them, like, stop doing this thing, but it's a lot more complicated than just stop doing it. So the question is, how do we detangle this convergence between vaping and mental health? Well, there's a couple things we have to do. The first thing is we have to reframe. Teens right now see nicotine and vaping as a way to cope with their mental health. We've got to reframe that as vaping is harmful to their mental health. Teens, this generation in particular, is one of the generations that is most concerned about mental health. And if we, as the tobacco control community, can successfully link these two items together, vaping and poor mental health, using science, we can turn this generation against vaping. The only way we do that is with clear facts and authentic narratives. Next, we want to replace it, right? We can't just tell teens who have been vaping and who are experiencing mental health challenges to just stop altogether. We've got to help them do it. And there's a lot of ways to provide that social support and guided solutions that they need to quit. And all of this has to happen with empathy. There is no way that we're going to strong arm teens into stopping to doing these things. We've got to get away from that old world of telling teens what to do and treating them like children and get into the 2022, which is respecting teens' own decisions, respecting that they have the ability to make smart choices if they're empowered with the right information. Because, hey, guess what? At the end of the day, they want positive mental health. They want to feel good. And not vaping will make them feel better. You've just got to show them the signs and guide them in the right direction. So at Rescue Agency, what we've done is we've developed a whole comprehensive approach to how to communicate with teens to both reframe and replace vaping in their lives. First, we reframe vaping, particularly for those who have not yet started vaping, who are maybe thinking about starting vaping, or experimenting with starting vaping. Now, this, for many of them, may be enough for them to stop. They have maybe not yet developed that dependency, that need to use vaping as a way to deal with their mental health challenges, and may find some solutions on their own just by staying away from this unhealthy solution. Then for people who have experimenting more and for more regular users, they're going to need more than just the reframing. The reframing will build that foundation of knowledge of science that they need to change, but then they need that replacement. How is it? What are they going to do about those mental health challenges that they're facing? How do they actually quit and stop vaping? And that's a secondary strategy that's needed. So we're going to talk about both this reframe and replace strategy together. We reframe and replace with two different strategies. The first one is Behind the Haze, our national teen vaping prevention campaign. Now, if you've seen any of my other vaping prevention videos, then you've probably heard about this campaign before. It is currently shared by different states that each license and implement different messages and components to educate local teens about the risks of vaping. This campaign continues to grow, developing more and more messaging. Some of the newer messages I'm going to share with you today. And our second strategy is called Quit the Hit. This is a newer program that's kind of like a bridge to cessation. It helps teens that don't really know what it means to quit, don't even acknowledge that they're currently addicted, just realize there's a problem, helps them get to that point that they're actually ready for cessation. And we'll talk a little bit more about it later. And this is complemented with other states where we work on custom vaping campaigns built from scratch based on local needs. Together, these constitute our reframe and replace strategy. Let's talk about how each of those actually work. Reframe. We reframe the impacts of vaping with clear facts and authentic narratives. We begin with clear facts by focusing on the science. All that science that we talked about at the beginning, really helping teens understand exactly how it is that nicotine affects their mental health. And we develop authentic narratives by really empathizing with how it is that teens are feeling and reflecting those feelings back to them and helping them understand how the science connects with the real world experiences that they're having. So we've been developing a few message packages focused on reframing within the Behind the Haze campaign. Message packages are what we call essentially our whole suite of messages that come around a commercial. So you might have a TV commercial, but then you have all the social media, the web, the digital media, the outdoor, all those things that help deliver that message. And the first message package that we have in this area is called Off. Now, the focus of Off was really to empathize with teens with how they were feeling. Try to reflect back to them the feelings they have described to us within focus groups and interviews, and then show them how it is that some of those feelings could actually be coming from their vape use. We really want to connect these feelings in real time that teens are having with the actual experiences, with the actual impacts of vapes. So let's take a look at Off.
Some days you just feel off, anxious, low, on edge. And vaping nicotine can make days like this worse and more common. Because nicotine throws off the natural balance of neurotransmitters in your brain, like dopamine and serotonin, which affects your mood. So you feel more unhappy and less like yourself.
Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm fine.
See how vaping can mess with your mental health at behindthehaze.com.
Now, what you saw there was real teens, and honestly, in their own words. We took a lot of that information directly from what we were hearing from teens in our own interviews and focus groups. In addition to that ad, we also put together different kinds of social and digital content and interactive experiences and things like that to really help them connect some of these different moods with what nicotine actually does to you. Again, we're reframing. We're connecting these emotions that they haven't previously connected with vaping to their regular vape use. Now, what we heard from teens that have seen Off was that it was really, really connecting with what they were feeling. Participants felt that the concept was relevant to their personal experiences and really grabbed their attention. Participants noted that they had themselves had feelings of being off, anxious, low, or on edge, the exact words that the ad was using. And teens found that the information about how vaping can mess with the balance of these neurotransmitters in your brain was novel and something they hadn't really heard of before, but was actually really easy to understand. In fact, they gave this ad a really, really high perceived effectiveness score, which is a score of 1 to 5 that kind of predicts how effective an ad could be. We're looking for anything above 3 to tell us that it's likely to be effective. And this one got a score of 3.72, really on the higher end of what's possible. One of the teens said, "I didn't know it specifically affected serotonin and dopamine levels. I've heard of people having mood problems. I hadn't heard specifically about serotonin and dopamine." And we hear comments like this all the time. Teens really like when you use the scientific terms, but then explain them in layman's terms. Because not only does it empower them to make decisions for themselves, but it's actually making them smarter as they watch it. And there's nothing a teen likes more than to feel that you just gave them something. You just gave them an opportunity to know more, to be smarter, and to be able to make their own decisions with more information. Now, in addition to off, we have another message package that's also focused on reframing within the Behind the Haze campaign. And this one's called the Great Manipulator. And the focus of the Great Manipulator was to dive deeper into the facts, dive more into the science. We wanted to show teens how vaping nicotine affects their mind in a way that can change their emotions. We wanted to help them really understand what was happening inside their brain and create that visual for them. Because if we can create that visual, now they have something to imagine themselves when they're starting to feel some of these emotions in their real life. So let's take a look at the Great Manipulator.
Vaping does more than damage your body.
Huh?
It manipulates your mind.
What?
Nicotine messes with important neurotransmitters, like acetylcholine, which affects your emotions. It overwhelms the receptors, triggering a change in your brain that has been linked to depression, stress, and anxiety. And every hit threatens to make you feel worse. Is vaping messing with your mental health? Find out at behindthehaze.com.
The Great Manipulator dove deep into teens' brains to help them understand exactly what was going on every time nicotine entered their brains and how it was actually changing the circuitry of their brain. Now, this is a powerful visual. If you're anything like me and you start thinking about what's going on inside your body, you get a little tingles, maybe feel a little queasy, and that's exactly the feeling we want teens to have. They're putting a substance inside of their body. We want them to know what that substance is doing exactly. In addition to that TV commercial or digital commercial that you just saw, we also developed a whole suite of supporting messages like these that were for digital, social, and other channels that help teens really dive deeper into the information and dive deeper to some of the help that they can receive. What we heard teens say about the Great Manipulator was that they really, really like the focus on mental health. Can't stress enough how much this generation is really focused on their own mental health and having the healthiest kind of psychological state that they can. They appreciated the very direct and scientific information. They want those facts, and they are so thankful every time they get them. And they actually really appreciated the animation style. We work really hard to make sure that when we make an animated ad, that it feels like it was made for teens and not for kids. And this one seemed to strike the right balance for that. Like I said, we check our perceived effectiveness scores, and this one had a solid 3.3 perceived effectiveness score. One of the things that teens said was, the graphics of it was pretty interesting and entertaining. Definitely better than some of the other ads I've seen before. Like just pop out graphics that are like colorful, really display the information. Another teen said the stress and anxiety and depression part really hit me because I feel like a lot of people go through them and they don't even know why they're feeling those things. The Great Manipulator was actually developed a little while ago, and so we've already started to see some of the outcomes from some of the states that have already started to implement this campaign. And that's one of the great things about Behind the Haze, is that we can see in real time as each state starts to implement some of these campaigns, we're able to tweak things, see what's working, see what's not working. And what we're seeing from a Great Manipulator is that it's really, really getting the message across and helping teams understand some of these outcomes. What we're already seeing in some of the evaluations of the campaign is that teens who are aware of Behind the Haze were 1.5 times more likely to recall the key message, nicotine can mess with the neurotransmitters in the brain that are linked to stress, anxiety, and depression. We also saw that vape users who recalled this message were 2.3 times more likely to report that they plan to reduce their vaping soon, compared to users who did not recall the message at all. And that's exactly what we want to see, not only that we're moving teens, but that we're specifically moving teens who are either experimenting or currently regularly using vape products. Now, that's an example of how we can reframe vaping to help teens understand that vaping is not helping their mental health, it's actually making it worse. But the next thing we have to do is we have to replace it. We can't just tell teens, particularly those that may already be addicted to vaping, to just stop. We've got to help them do it. Now, what we see here is that a lot of our state partners already have cessation options for teens. They have, the quit line extensions that are designed specifically for teens and apps and other products. But in our conversations with teens, what we're hearing is that they're not really ready for those programs yet. So they kind of need a bridge that gets them from this desire to stop vaping to this realization that I may need tools and support to help me do it. Some of the things that we hear from teens is that they tell us that quitting is hard, that they don't know if they're really ready for it. They want to quit, but they don't think that they need serious help. They think that a quit line might be something that their parents might find out about. There's no one that's really rooting them on when maybe their friends are pressuring them to continue vaping. Some of them might say that they have real anxiety about getting on the phone and calling people. So there's a lot of things holding teens back from using some of the cessation resources that we offer. So we need something in the middle. Something that provides that social support and guided solutions for teens that are thinking about quitting or maybe considered quitting, but are not yet ready to take advantage of the tools that they need to do it effectively. We need a path from prevention to cessation. And that's what Quit the Hit is. Quit the Hit's one of our newest programs that's actually an Instagram-based virtual intervention designed to provide support and ease to teens in the quitting process. It's hosted actually right on Instagram within the private direct messages that teens get by using a group message function. It's 5 weeks of quit support through daily education and group challenges that are all facilitated by a trained tobacco cessation counselor. The groups are about 10 to 15 teens that have active facilitation from this counselor. We try and group teens based on age, keeping younger teens together, older teens together, and have started to do it with young adults as well. And even to have formed specialty groups such as LGBT, young adult cessation groups to help teens find more like-minded quitters that can provide more social support that feels more relevant and personal to them. Now, the goal of this replace step is that we want teens to feel that support. Remember, a lot of teens started vaping with other teens, right? They didn't do it by themselves. So when they want to quit, they want to feel that other teens like them are rooting them on as well. So we provide this group environment to help them feel that they're not alone and that the struggles that they're facing are not their own struggles, because a lot of them may feel shame and embarrassment from their challenges quitting. And we want them to know this isn't a personal deficiency, but this is actually what happens from nicotine and that lots of people are experiencing it. We also want to provide guided solutions. We want to let them know how to quit. A lot of them think that quitting is just simply stopping to use your vape, but we in tobacco control, we know it's a lot more complicated than that, and they need that education. And most importantly of all, we have to do this with empathy. We have to understand that they're dealing with mental health challenges. They may have been coping with nicotine, and so we want to help them work through some of those challenges as well. So let me give you a little preview of how Quit the Hit works. Like I said, it's 30 days and it all happens within Instagram, within the messaging. Here's an example of on day 13 is kind of our set quit date that we encourage teens within those 30 days to actually do a quit attempt. Here's a few sample messages. The facilitator might say, quit day check-in, how's it going? Stay with us, whether it feels like a breeze or not, we're in it together. What message would you send someone in this group who might be struggling silently today? And so you might, hear some real messages from some participants we've received. Every small amount of time that you don't vape is important. Be proud of yourself for the small wins. Take it in one day at a time. You've got this, you're so strong. So we really see a lot of that really great social support. Again, this is the mental health generation. They want to support each other, and many times we just have to create the place and an environment and safety for them to do so. Throughout the process, we'll be giving them guided solutions. So here's an example from day 17. The group facilitator may say, let's check in. If you've had cravings, how have you managed them? Has there been anything good about quitting so far? And so here's some examples from real participants that they've said, I feel so much better. My body feels better. My mind feels better. I'm so happy I took the steps to quit. Another participant said, I'm doing really good and I don't really have cravings as much anymore. I've been keeping myself preoccupied with work and other hobbies. I recently started learning guitar. So again, teens are giving them each other ideas. Some of them are going to be further along than others, but those that are further along serve as role models for those that are still struggling. The key here is that they're doing it together and they're learning from each other. And what we've seen from over 500 participants that have already participated in Quit the Hit is that after the group, they are significantly more likely to be ready to not only sustain their quit, but even if they're struggling, they're more ready to take advantage of different resources that are available within their community. So this may be the first step of a quit journey. 30 days with us leads to maybe a call or a sign up for a quit line or for some other quit group locally, or even to supporting some of their friends who might be interested in quitting too. We've definitely had teens come back with friends to these programs in order to really create a nicotine-free environment within their social group in their own personal lives. So that's our approach to teen vaping within the mental health crises. We talked about the Reframe strategy, which we do through our Behind the Haze campaign, and our Replace strategy, which we do through our new Quit the Hit program. As you embark on your journey to help teens in your community quit vaping or not vape at all, while taking their mental health into account, there's 3 things you have to remember. First, Empathy needs to be at the forefront of all of our messaging. Everything that you do with teens, whether it's about vaping or whether it's something else, make sure that you lead with empathy. This is the mental health generation, and you leading with empathy is what's going to show them that you have their best interests in mind. Second, we want to make sure that we're always reframing vaping. Many teens currently believe that vaping is helping them cope with their mental health challenges. We have to reframe it as something that is actually making it worse. And finally, we want to replace. We want to recognize that vaping may be serving a function in their life, and we have to replace that. We do that by providing social support and guided solutions that meet teens where they're at, and not expect them to respond the same way that a adult smoker who's tried to quit 20 times would respond. These teens don't even know what smoking cessation is in many times, and we have to kind of lead them to the tools that they need, knowing they might not even be looking for them. So that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching. If you want any more information about our teen vaping strategies or more examples from some of our campaigns like Behind the Haze and some of our custom campaigns, be sure to check out our YouTube channel. We've also got great videos on other health topics that we work on, such as nutrition and substance use. And if there's ever anything that we can help you do in your community, please be sure to reach out. Thank you again for watching. Have a great day.